Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Service Learning Town Hall. My name is Karen Muñoz Christian, and I'm a professor of Spanish in the Department of World Languages and Cultures at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And today I'm excited to tell you about my service learning activity that I've incorporated into my intermediate Spanish 2 class. So I will begin by sharing just a few parts of the syllabus for the class with you. And then I'll be discussing with you the community engaged learning survey, and I will follow up by showing you one reflection activity that my students do that's related to community engaged learning in this course. So I'm going to begin, as I mentioned, by sharing my screen to show you my Spanish 202 syllabus. This is an intermediate Spanish 2 class. And the key part that I wanted to show you today is, first of all, the very brief mention of the service learning activity that I incorporate into this intermediate Spanish course. And here in San Luis Obispo, we have a dual immersion school by the name of Pacheco Elementary, Spanish-English dual immersion. It's very close to the Cal Poly campus, which makes it very accessible for our students. And as you see here, it offers the students in this class the opportunity to improve their Spanish communication skills while assisting the local Spanish-speaking community. And this is a collaboration, a partnership that has been going on since 2004. So it's hard to believe it. It's been 17 years that I've been involving my students and some of my colleagues as well in particularly working as classroom assistants for the Spanish designated classrooms at Pacheco. And so this has turned out to be a really wonderful opportunity for these intermediate level Cal Poly students to, on the one hand, be in a sort of a living language lab, but also to offer a genuine service to the teachers and to the children of this school. This is a school where the vast majority of volunteers in the classrooms are English speakers, leaving a real gap in terms of Spanish-speaking volunteers who can work with the kids and support the teachers. And so our intermediate level students and above are able to go into the classrooms and provide the kind of support that otherwise might not be available with volunteers who speak only English. I also include at the end of my syllabus a statement for those of you who read Spanish, feel free to read this, but it's just a little bit more description of the program and of how this works. And so I'll do a very simplified translation of this information. As I tell my students, an important part of this course is a community service experience working with the Spanish-speaking community of San Luis Obispo. Here I mentioned the name and location of the school, and that the students will be able to assist the teachers and children with their class activities. I require a total of 8 hours of service for an academic quarter. Of course, the students can do more if they choose to, but this is the minimum that's required. And I mentioned to my students, they'll have many opportunities to use their Spanish with children who are learning to communicate. And also that through this service, my students will be making a very valuable contribution to the community at the same time as they're learning about other people, about diverse families, and about themselves. And I've also added below una nota personal, a personal note from myself. And I should probably mention, I've been involved in Pacheco since 2001 when my oldest daughter started kindergarten at the school. And then my younger daughter went through Pacheco as well. And so this is how I got the whole program started when I saw this need for Spanish-speaking volunteers. So I have a very, very personal connection to the school and to this service program. I do mention to my students that for some of them, the idea of working with children and also communicating regularly in Spanish might make them nervous. But I assure them that the children will love having the volunteers present in their classroom, and tend to be very grateful for their help. The children really do love the Cal Poly volunteers. I could say that for a fact. Also, I mentioned to my students that many of these children don't have anyone at home who has the time to read to them. Many of the homes do not have books or many books. And in some situations, the children don't receive a lot of attention from adults in terms of conversation and so on. And so I emphasize to my students that the effort that they put out for this service is making a very positive contribution to education in this community. So that's basically the key points of my syllabus. For the next part of this video, I would also like to share with you the CSU Community Engaged Learning Tools Survey, and many of you may be familiar with this. And I have mostly filled out the survey, so I'll just be sort of running through it with you to help you kind of get a sense of my thought process as I was connecting the questions in this survey to the particular type of service that my students engage in this Spanish, intermediate Spanish class. So this is, many of you may have seen this. This is what the first page of the survey looks like. It's basic information about you and your course title, subject area, when you plan to offer it next. And this course, Intermediate Spanish 2, is offered at Cal Poly every quarter, but as you'll see below, not all of my colleagues incorporate community engaged learning. And so probably the next time I will teach this will be winter of 2022. And so as on the question about course institutionalization, I've selected that I have elected to implement community engaged learning in my section or sections of this course. Other options are if all faculty in the course, for example, the course is designed as a service learning course, or on the other extreme, there's no community engaged learning being taught in this course. And in my course, this community engaged learning is required. Then as far as my primary method of communication with my, in this case, community partner is Pacheco Elementary. I make direct communication. I feel really fortunate to have a long-standing and very collegial relationship with the principal and the teachers at Pacheco. And I know most of them in person. I've met them. Several of them were my daughter's teachers, and I am in email contact with them primarily, arranging to find out who would like to have students to volunteer in their classrooms, and any sort of updates that I can provide. So the communication is directly from me to our community partner in this case. So moving on to the next page. This question is about reciprocal community partnerships. And as you can see, the whole framework of the community engaged learning is based on 6 essential elements. And so the first of these, reciprocal community partnerships, asks for you to describe the frequency, depth, and purpose of communication within the community partnership. And so in our case, with Pacheco Elementary, the instructor, myself, and the community partner maintain dialogue about how the community project or activity enriches student learning and benefits the organization. It's somewhat informal communication, but as I said, because I have this a great working relationship with the teachers, I am in regular contact with them about primarily how our students can contribute, how they can provide a genuine service for the classrooms, for the teachers, for the children. And I also constantly solicit feedback from the teachers about ways that we can better help. And with the pandemic and all instruction going virtual, you can imagine it turned our volunteer program pretty much upside down, because we'd always been able to send students directly into the classroom. But we worked with the principal of the school, and then reached out to teachers to find out which would be interested in having volunteers for their Zoom sessions. And we have a core of teachers who have found ways to incorporate our Cal Poly students and enable them to support the children particularly through breakout rooms, where they can work in a very small group or one-on-one with children who need some extra support. And so that finding out how that was going to work, it's been very much a learning process this year. And we've been in constant touch with the teachers to find out how we can best serve them under these very unusual and challenging circumstances. The second point of the survey is a student community involvement and how it benefits the common good. And this asks us to describe how the benefit to the common good is communicated to students and assessed as part of the course content. And so the question specifically, the intentional benefit to the common good is, and for my class, I have said that it is identified and explicitly stated. Organizational capacity, student client growth, social and economic benefits, et cetera. And this is, as I mentioned from the very first day with the syllabus, I provide information about this, this community engaged learning opportunity and why we're doing it, which has a lot to do with the benefits to the school, in this case, to the children, to the families. And the follow-up question, is there an assessment component? Yes, I will be very straightforward about this. The assessment component is rather informal, and I'll be showing you a little bit more detail about this at the end of the survey. But I basically have two assignments that are related to this service opportunity, one of which is a composition, and the students make an informational brochure for immigrant families based on their experiences with the children at Pacheco. And then there's also a low stakes written reflection, basically a question incorporated into an exam about their experience at Pacheco. So on to the next component. And here the topic is academically relevant community involvement, asking us to describe how the community engaged learning experience facilitates course learning. And so my response, the community project or activity, supplements course content. I would not say this activity is critical for student success in my intermediate Spanish course, but it does provide a really robust supplement to the communicative competencies that students are working on, as well as their cultural competence. And this is, I think, something I've mentioned in the comments section, of how the students gaining awareness of how a dual immersion school works, of the demographics of these schools, the challenges and so on, is definitely supplementary to their experience as a language learner. So in additional comments, I wrote, in addition to providing authentic opportunities for building Spanish communication skills, this experience helps students develop their cultural competence as they observe the unique challenges and educational inequities faced by children from diverse backgrounds. So moving on to the next page, civic learning goals. And this question asks how goals for civic learning and relevant social issues are stated. And I vacillated between implied and explicitly stated, but opted for explicitly stated because we do, not only does this appear in the syllabus, but we discuss at length how students can make a contribution through their experience at Pacheco. And we do periodically bring up as I mentioned before, the social issues, cultural issues that underlie their experience. So in my additional comments, many aspects of the community engaged learning experience directly or indirectly complement both linguistic and cultural components of the course. And finally, critical reflection. This is how critical reflection is integrated into course content. And so my response to this was that critical reflection connects course content to the community project and activity. So it's integrated in some way, but not I shouldn't say not the primary tool of the class. And assessment is the next question. How student learning is assessed for civic learning outcomes. And here I gave this a great deal of thought, and I don't want to present my incorporation of community engaged learning as more, what do I want to say, more focused on civic learning outcomes. Ultimately, it's about a very hands-on approach to, on the one hand, language acquisition opportunities, but also to support for the educational community. So that's why I selected that assessment tends to focus primarily on course content. So that brings me to the end of the survey. I'm going to go ahead and submit my survey, and they're telling me I will receive an email that indicates if a CSLI or CCEL attribute has been identified for my course. So that sends the survey off, and we'll see what I hear back from them. So then the final portion that I wanted to share with you is when I mentioned earlier that one of the reflection type activities that I connect with this experience at Pacheco Elementary is a brochure that I ask the students to make. And so I will put the instructions for this on the screen first. And again, if you happen to read Spanish, it's pretty simple. But what I've initially asked students to do, and this is just instructions for the rough draft, think about the immigrant families at Pacheco and things that they might need to know to adapt to life in the United States. You're going to create a brochure with information to assist them. And so I've asked them to write first a draft of their brochure with recommendations for immigrant families. And there's a pedagogical piece of this. It's for those of you who know Spanish, it's working with the subjunctive and command forms. And I asked for their brochure to include information and recommendations about the following topics: daily life, laws, and the public education system. So that those are the instructions for that. And then finally, I thought I would show you a sample of a student's final draft, which has been turned into a brochure format. And so I encourage students, after they've written the text for their brochure, to add visuals, graphics to make it look like an appealing brochure. So this is a particular student's sample brochure for reflecting on her experience at Pacheco and what families might need to know. So with that, thank you for your patience. You have listened to a lot of commentary here. I hope that these ideas and my own reflection on my process of incorporating community engaged learning into my course will be helpful to you, and look forward to perhaps questions and answers at the end of our town hall. Thank you very much.